time. But what is it? NOLA BA along with WBOK bringing to you a live conversation on the state of the economy of New Orleans. Make sure that you are calling somebody, having that conversation with them, making sure that they are paying attention as well, because we've got some movers and some shakers sitting at the table that are here to enjoy the festivities, but also to be able to ask and answer a whole bunch of questions. Everybody about these different questions. Let's get everybody to introduce themselves. If we can start at this end of the table and introduce yourself and tell us your position, please.
Sure, thank you. Greg Fern, CEO of LCMC Health in New Orleans. I'm excited to be here this afternoon with my fellow panelists and looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you for being here, too. You, sir, the president extraordinaire. I'm going to just throw that part in there just because.
Of the Cotton Bowl winning team in the state of Louisiana. Yes, Mike Fitz, president of Tulane University, and thank you for having us today.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. And my friend that we've had several different conversations
Many.
with. How you doing? Welcome.
Hi, I'm doing well. Latanja Sylvester. I'm National Political Affairs Director for Resilience Force.
Thank you for coming, too. And Miss Deanna?
Hi, everyone. I'm Deanna.
You're my new best friend.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, we're good friends already. So, Deanna Rodriguez, President and CEO of Entergy New Orleans, and happy to be here.
Thank you for coming. And I'm responsible a little bit for him, just a tad bit, just a little bit. Introduce yourself, sir.
Walt Leger, President and CEO of New Orleans and Company, and excited to bring some hospitality from New Orleans up here to D.C.
Good, welcome. How was the trip? Everybody's trip was good?
Wonderful.
Great.
I guess, too, we were thinking, too, when I got on the plane, I said, please let the weather be great, because I think one of the times that a lot of us came up here, it snowed everybody in because it was bad weather that year. But,
Right.
We are so glad that good weather is what we have on these here days. Let's get into some of the questions that we have. NOLA BA has been working with a lot of you and putting together, I guess, some great questions, some good things, and working with the community. And one of those, we wanted to find out the role that your organization is going to play in making sure that today's topic is going to be something everybody can take home. That topic question is about the state of the economy of New Orleans. Now, is that good? Is that bad? Is that somewhere in between? I think we all can agree that anything of that sort can be improved. So where are we when it comes to the conversation piece about the state of the economy in New Orleans? Mr. Farron, let's start with you, because LCMC got a lot of great news here lately.
Yeah, thank you. We, as most of you know, we closed on our transaction with Tulane at the end of December, which brings LCMC Health up to 9 hospitals, almost 15,000 employees in the greater New Orleans area. We're excited about our partnership with Tulane. We've been partners with Tulane for quite some time, along with LSU. And we're bullish on the New Orleans economy and what we're putting together with Tulane and building really advanced academic healthcare, the type of healthcare that creates a destination center, brings people into New Orleans, and frankly attracts great faculty and researchers. So we're excited about what we're doing for New Orleans and what we're taking on with Tulane.
President of the world champion Tulane Green Wave, your response to that too, because this is going to be a great partnership.
This is wonderful from our perspective, from LCMC's perspective, and for New Orleans and Louisiana. This is a partnership between academic medicine, community medicine. That's the future of healthcare. Bringing, in a sense, to the delivery of care, of specialty as well as outreach, clinical trials, so that New Orleans, Louisiana can truly be a destination healthcare system. And that's by this partnership with LCMC, which we've worked with them at Children's Hospital as well as the UMC and with LSU. I think this is really something that in the years ahead will not only improve the care of Louisianans and that they won't have to leave Louisiana for care, but also bring people to Louisiana for really the top medical care.
when we start talking about, and I'm going to stick with you just for a minute here because I kind of want to get both of you to rebut on this. When we've been talking about health disparities, I've had the pleasure of talking to some of the great doctors that you have working with you, and those folks from LCMC are enlightening us on the disparities, especially in different poverty-stricken areas. What will that bring to the table and change the economy for those that don't have? And I just had a conversation on Wednesday about the birthing hospitals. I didn't realize that every area doesn't have a birthing hospital. So what will that do with changing some of those disparities, with bringing this collaboration of Tulane and LCMC together?
Well, it'll bring strength. If you think about 3 institutions with aligned missions, that being Tulane, LCMC, and LSU, and the power that brings when you think of collaboration around research and looking at patient populations and how we can treat those populations different. That's a huge win for New Orleans, and something that, as an institution, we're all focused on.
So I agree. That's one of the most important issues confronting Louisiana, the entire country, the questions of health disparities. And we view this partnership as really one of the most important ways to and address that issue. We're talking about building a system of healthcare across multiple hospitals, multiple groups of doctors, and really the purpose is outreach and to be able to think about population healthcare in a new and important way. So obviously we have a huge presence in downtown New Orleans with the University Medical Center, which we're expanding, as well as in children. So this is, years from now, I think we'll look back at this as a way not only improving the quality, but in a sense, the opportunity healthcare across New Orleans.
Well, let me go to Ms. Sylvester here, because it sounds like you're getting ready to be real busy. And the reason why I bring that up is because of the workforce. Anytime that you have any type of businesses that are getting ready to combine, they're going to have some specialties that they're going to need as well. And of course, with all the corporations that are looking for the workforce as well, resilience workforce is got to be involved in some way, because that's going to be a pretty big job.
Well, yes. So Resilience Force, for folks out there who aren't familiar, we are the voice of America's rising resilience workforce. So we stand on the front lines of climate disasters and during the COVID-19 disasters. One is to create good jobs, right? And then 2 is to make certain that we're making our families, our communities, and our cities more resilient. So in early 2020, we partnered with the city of New Orleans to launch a community health worker program in New Orleans. I mean, it was the first of its kind in the country. We recruited laid off or underemployed hospitality workers. If you all remember, I know we're in the healthcare space right here, that New Orleans was the epicenter of COVID. And so we took those workers and we trained them and pivoted them into jobs as community health workers. And I think what is important when we talk about the healthcare disparities is that one of our key functions during that time was to make certain that we were going into those communities that was hardest hit by COVID, and who also had a not so pleasant a relationship with the healthcare system. So we targeted African American communities, we targeted immigrant communities, and as you all know, I mean, we were leading in overall in the end with making certain that our community members were both vaccinated and early on that they were even getting tested. So I think that what we've done is we created a really good workforce development program that we want to expand. I mean, throughout our program, our community health worker program, we've had 68 individuals to come into our program. Now, some of which have pivoted. A large percentage of them has changed. From the hospitality industry, and they went over to the healthcare industry, right? And the goal was to make certain that folks had, like I talked to folks, I want our workers in New Orleans to be like Swiss Army knives, right? Mm-hmm. So I want folks to be, if you want to go back into the hospitality industry, you have that opportunity. But a lot of our folks decided to go into the healthcare community, and now they're working in long-term, sustainable, good-paying jobs.
Let me kind of go back with you a minute, because you brought something up that was really interesting when you started talking about the African American population and COVID. You know what I'm getting ready to ask you. She's looking at me like, Lord, here it comes. But anyway, the part of the trust in the healthcare, and you two can jump in too, because one of the things we found out is that there was a trust factor with the African American population in getting the shot, which we found out by talking to healthcare professionals that, you know, it looked like the African American population was more so affected by COVID with the obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes,
Right.
all those different things that were killing the African American population. But yet I'm still telling you, I want to take that shot.
Yeah, I mean,
How did you
that was one
handle
of
that part?
that was one of our major issues first going into the communities. I mean, most people know that I do a lot of political work. I have a political background, so I actually approach our community health worker plan as just like a political campaign. So we went to doors. We trained folks on how to have those hard conversations with people, right? And that is like mostly the 80-20 rule. You got to listen more than you talk, because people had valid reasons why they weren't taking the COVID vaccinations. And so what we did is we gained trust with our community members, but we also provided them with the facts. And I think that proved to be helpful in making certain that folks were getting their vaccinations. And then I think we're still dealing with that. We're still partnering right now at the New Orleans Health Department, where there's still some hesitancy around now receiving your flu shot or any other vaccination. Mm-hmm. So we're still going out dispelling some of those myths, but because we've been on the ground for 2.5 years now, we've developed the trust with our community members, and they actually are trusting us to deliver the right message to them. And so that's where we are.
Gentlemen, do you all want to jump in? I'm sorry.
I just wanted to
President
add,
Fitz.
you were very successful. And New Orleans, in the end, was very successful in vaccination rates and other protective actions. Really was a model for the country. So I understand there were huge issues up front, but they were addressed. Not that we didn't have a long way to go, but you deserve credit.
Very, very good. That work doesn't stop, though.
It doesn't. I mean, there's always a disaster around the corner, and it's.
All right, Ms. Deanna, your utilities work is impressive. You have been in the business for a long period of time, but if anybody has to understand anything, at least twice a year, you have to make some pretty big decisions. And I'm just saying during the time of hurricanes,
Right.
and when we look at these different cold days as well, and maybe even when it gets really hot, which we know that temperatures in New Orleans can get really out of control.
Well, that's right. And when we talk about resilience, because we also have to have a conversation about resilience and being prepared for storms that come our way. And we work with everyone at this table to be prepared. So we have to have the infrastructure to both draw business, right, so that we can have the folks that can come to our aid if we need them. And during Ida, for example, we brought in 27,000 line workers from across the country, from 47 states, to help New Orleans and the entire state come back. But that's the kind of work we do. And during COVID, and we were talking about COVID a moment ago, we have line workers and our customer care centers that showed up every day. They didn't get a day off. They weren't allowed to stay home because we still had customers that came to work every day. Entergy New Orleans is a subsidiary of Entergy Corporate, and I have to remind everyone over and over again, one, that it is the only Fortune 500 company headquartered in the entire state of Louisiana. Wow. And our goal of everyone sitting here should be to bring more. And I think we all need to do that, because if it allows for the training, it gives us jobs, it increases the economic or maybe decreases the economic disparity that exists, and then it allows everyone to spread the wealth. So that's my personal goal.
So everybody wants to understand from you, and I'm looking at this and saying, okay, here goes off the cuff again. Infrastructure for Entergy. Are we solid? Everything's good? Because I know that when we have these hurricanes that are very high winds, are we good?
We're getting better, okay. And we have recently proposed through the City Council, who's our regulator, a docket that includes an entire map, and it's a menu of everything that we need to get done over the next 10, 12 years. It's about a 10-year plan, but we're 10, 12 years behind what Florida's done. And it is a community conversation. It is not just an Entergy conversation. It is not just about wires and poles. It's about planning, it's about zoning, it's about the window strength and roof strengths. It's everything that has to be done. Because we can keep the lights on, and if you don't have a building standing, there's still a problem.
Let's talk to Mr. Walt Leger III. Mr. Leger, my knowing you has been exemplary because of the fact that I've known some of the stuff that you and your folks, your dad as well, have done in the past with politics and making policy decisions. Let's talk about New Orleans and Company. What does New Orleans and Company plan for an economy that's going to strive, not go back?
Yeah, well, thank you, and it's great to be with you and everyone on the panel. So many of the things that have been referenced already come back to us. You know, we talk about being a destination for great world-class healthcare. We talk about the opportunities that are created in our workforce development plans and otherwise. I mean, I think that it's all very much connected to the fact that we are a community that enjoys welcoming people into our community for a variety of things. We want them to come and have a good time and experience the great culture that we have, but we also do want them to come to take part in the incredible higher learning institutions that we have in our community, from Tulane to Xavier to Dillard to UNO and on and on. There are just so many great things that we have to offer. In the past, we've been a destination for world-class healthcare. We continue to be, and the new partnership is going to just strengthen that even further. I also look over at my friends at the end of the table, and I think our most important customers when it comes to conventions and conferences and meetings are academic institutions and our academic organizations and also medical organizations. We just had 25,000 hematologists in town in December, the largest meeting that they've ever had, that supported small businesses and individuals who work across our community in a variety of different ways. These impacts are very important. They're holistic, and building upon that is, to me, the future of the economy. It's often said we should not be so reliant on the tourism and hospitality industry. I couldn't agree more. We should not be reliant on that. Mm-hmm. It is an important part of our industry, but it's a foundation that we can build upon. And I think welcoming people here to do business, as Deanna said, more business opportunities, welcoming people here for hospital services, for healthcare services, for education services. Those are really important, and us being a part of the ecosystem that develops that is going to be critical into how we evolve and how we grow the economy here.
So all of us, and notice I put myself in this part of the conversation, all of us have heard someone say to you, your staff, and they bring it back to you, and you're like, yeah, okay, what we should be doing, what we should be calling ourselves, what we should not be relying on with just saying that it's the culinary place and stuff. And yes, I think in the 80s we got away from, 80s and 90s we got from calling it the party city. Yeah. In your own words, this is right off the cuff from each one of you. What should we be looking forward to? You kind of answered that question a little bit, but what should be pinpointed? What would you put it to be? That's what New Orleans needs to be to improve this economy.
As simple as I can put it from me is, we're celebrated for our creativity all the time. Creativity in food, music, culture, all of it. We should also be celebrating innovation. We should be celebrating the fact that NASA's building the rocket that's going to send the next person to the moon. Mm-hmm. A woman and a person of color, the first to go to the moon. We should be celebrating the fact that the National World War II Museum is in our community, not just because we happen to have a world-class professor at UNO who is connected to Eisenhower, but also because Andrew Higgins modified his vessel to be able to land it at D-Day and win the war. Mm-hmm. We have to continue to celebrate those things about our city and about our culture that elevate the conversation, that we never shy away from the fact that you're going to have an amazing time when you're in our city, but we're so much more than just a celebration and a party. We are that, and celebrating that's got to be what we all work together to do.
I'm sorry, go ahead. We don't have to go down. Anybody just want to jump in at the time.
So just to pick up on Walt said, and I want to sort of put an exclamation point at it, New Orleans being known as sort of an innovation, creativity city. This will take me about 2 minutes, but if you look around the country and the cities that have really taken off over the last 5-10 years, it's cities with research universities with the impact of those universities. Austin, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee, Pittsburgh, where explosion in research, but that research has created business startups, innovation. We all know about, obviously, Silicon Valley, but this is the next generation, biomedical. And so for us at Tulane, we've seen an explosion in our research. It's gone up 50% over the last 5 years. We expect it to go up another 50%. We'll be over $300 million in funded research coming to New Orleans. The point is, that is an opportunity for us to create not only intellectual property, but businesses. And you just look around the country, that's what all those cities have in common. That's what we're doing at Tulane with the Uptown campus and new engineering building, and then the downtown campus, both in charity, where we're going to have 600 researchers in that space, and ultimately repositioning Tulane Hospital for research in a nursing school. That is not only jobs and $600 million of investment, construction, and so on, but ultimately creating sort of businesses out of the outgrowth. And that's what those other cities have done, that has the opportunity really to expand on the traditional tourism base for New Orleans.
And I mean, I can talk about our work. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, it's like for me, I would like for our workforce to have several opportunities to be this Swiss Army knife. And, you know, the work that we're preparing to build New Orleans and this region for, I mean, if you all remember Hurricane Katrina, it was supposed to be the storm of the century. Well, since that time, since Hurricane Katrina, 17 years, we spent $192 billion on climate disasters, right? So, and, you know, my work, the Resilience Force, was actually formed out of that work, the experiences that we learned from post-Hurricane Katrina, myself and the executive director and founder of Resilience Force, Saket Soni. And so what we noticed that there was an emerging workforce out of that. And no one knew about it. I mean, we thought it was just migrant workers. We thought people just come in and just work. Well, actually, there is the emerging workforce, and it's a climate restoration work that we are preparing to build upon. Like, we're training workers right now. We're in conversations, and it's slated to be with the Department of Labor to have a apprenticeship program, a disaster restoration technician. This is an apprenticeship program. Partially will be trained, and after receiving the certification, what we have done is we've connected. Unlike other, workforce development programs, a lot of times they have these programs, and at the end of the program, you receive the certification, and you don't have a job, right? So we're working with the Department of Labor to obtain those apprenticeship programs, which will be paid partly through WIOLA dollars, federal dollars, but also we're working with good actors and good employers who are committed to hiring these folks after they receive the certification. So, I mean, we're not just focusing on climate disaster job or restoration jobs. We're also going into the clean energy jobs, which are the jobs of the future, right? Our folks in New Orleans and our region need access to opportunities outside of just hospitality and the healthcare system. We need to be offering our folks everything that's available and have them to select which pathway they take. Okay.
Yeah, and just to add to what's been said and why we're so excited about our Tulane partnership, if we think of Children's Hospital and the fact that we have LSU and Tulane at Children's Hospital, really putting something together that's special and unique, that attracts top talent. People around the country are like, hey, what's going on in New Orleans? That seems pretty unique and exciting. I'm going to take a look at that. And we've had tremendous success at Children's and growing faculty through LSU and Tulane. We're going to see that across the healthcare system. And then when you bring in the growth and research and package that up, but also celebrate why New Orleans is so unique. There's no city like it. There's a lot of people that are excited.
Doesn't that attract not only the top talent, but doesn't that attract other business?
It
yes,
does.
Absolutely. It attracts other business. We grow our workforce, grow the healthcare workforce, research, gets people excited, they come in, population
the reason
grows.
why I asked you that, though, was actually, I'm actually originally from North Carolina, and in being in that Raleigh-Durham corridor, I'm very well knowledgeable of Duke University North Carolina University, University of North Carolina, which is my alma mater, North Carolina State, all the HBCUs, and that corridor called the Research Triangle Park, which is basically naming Durham and that area the city of medicine. So I'm looking at them and saying, okay, over the years, they've now improved all the infrastructure of the municipality. And what I'm now seeing is big business now coming, the Googles, the Apples, all of them now starting to move their infrastructure to that area, and of course seeing a better quality of life for the citizens that live there with more, I guess, making more money. And not to interrupt you, I'm sorry I did, but I just had to throw that in there for you, so just to let you know.
it's
I knew what you were
exactly-
talking
I think
about.
you just hit the nail on the head. The reality is this. Over the last decade, the state of Louisiana had a lot of struggle investing in higher education and support for it. Over the last 8 years with Governor Edwards, there's been great advances on that. And Tulane and our private universities are a major part of that as well. The thing that needs to happen going forward is continued investments in our academic medical centers and in our universities. That is exactly as President Fitz has already said. That's where economic growth comes from.
So let me ask Ms. Deanna this in that part of the question. As the head, the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, your folks have got to bring this information to you, the data. And when you look at the data, how do you all make those decisions on this is what we need to improve on, and this is where our infrastructure needs to go, because this is going to be a long-term investment for a corporation that's not going anywhere, and you want to improve.
Well, that's the point that I was going to make, which is we're not.
was reading your mind
well,
at the same
well,
time. I'm
what I
sorry.
wanted to bring up is the fact that we could go somewhere, and everyone sort of takes us for granted in that, well, Entergy corporate's not going anywhere, and there are other states and other cities that would be perhaps a little more business friendly, and not.
So what you trying to say, Ms.
I'm-
Deanna? What you trying
I'm-
to say?
I'm
I think we
trying
all
to-
at this table need to hear this.
I'm trying to say that we should embrace a camaraderie and a pro-business attitude that isn't a bad thing. And so that if we can bring more industry, renewable industry, new jobs, if our city is prepared for the new doctors and the new researchers to come, and it takes all of us. So it's not just, I can brag that our rates are 10% below the national average. That's one great reason to come to New Orleans and move here with your family. And I would ask that we all think of what those other things are. It can't just be food and culture. It has to be infrastructure. It has to be low utility rates. It has to be a workforce. And without everyone at this table sort of working in concert, and I would add the leadership of our policymakers in talking about it in that way, instead of saying, what's in it for me?
So let me ask this question, and this goes to everybody at the table. That there are great parts, and I'm not talking about anyone or any part of New Orleans in specific, but there are great parts of New Orleans that I love, but there are also some disparaging areas that are stricken with poverty. We've all talked about the crime. How do we solve it? We can't police our way out of this. That's for a fact. But how do I then say to all those folks that don't have the hope, don't think they have the opportunity to get that training to become a lineman to work at Energy?
We have a partnership with Delgado University. We also work very closely with Tulane for young people that want to come and intern with us. We do that. We're trying to do more with Youth Force NOLA, another opportunity to be able to bring in kids that can work in our industry. We have high-paying jobs. And one real quick note is, and everybody's talked about Katrina. After Katrina, the question was whether or not big Entergy corporate would come back to the city, and we made a choice to come back to the city that we love. And we have over 2,000 employees that love and want to be in New Orleans. And so those are the things those jobs trickle into other jobs, as we've all talked about.
Yeah, I want to take that question, Gerard, and thank you for asking it, because it actually is what we're building. Resilience Force is actually building a New Orleans Resiliency Academy, and at that academy, we will be training. Hopefully, we work closely with Energy to
So we're
train
talking bricks and mortar?
Yeah, brick
Okay.
and mortar,
All
and
right.
in that area, those areas of the city, one of which is New Orleans East. We are identifying properties to build a facility so that we can recruit individuals local individuals to be able to be prepared and skilled to train for these jobs that are going to be coming down our pipeline real soon. And then like also just training for the jobs that are available now. We understand that renewable energy, restoration technicians, but also we're going to need linemen as partners. I mean, we're working right now in partnership. We're launching our first cohort with Delgado Community College in the upcoming weeks, where we're training individuals on how to be roofers, and not just regular roofers, the fortified roof. Those are the roofs of the future for all our folks that has to be a part of this special session around the insurance. These are going to be the roofs that can take 100 miles an hour winds. We have a cohort that's starting at Delgado in partnership to train. But not only, again, this is what's important about, and which I find to be, a niche with our organizations. We're not just training folks to train them. We have an employer lined up, U.S. Roofing Services, a national organization, national company that's going to hire these folks to become and do these jobs. So I think what's important is, yes, we have to start investing in those communities within our city that has been forgotten about, but we also have to be bringing in the resource and working in concert to make certain that we all are getting everything accomplished that we need.
What we find, and I'm going to just add this, President Fitz, in just a minute here, I'm coming to you. What we find is, and this is one of the, I think, key segments of this conversation, is that most of the folks that live in New Orleans have something to say about getting rid of crime. You all would agree? Sure. And I think that what we found out in any study data that's coming out is crime don't necessarily have a zip code. Because what's happening in my neighborhood is probably happening in yours. Depends on who's getting the news clip that day. I'm just being for real. But it's probably happening in all across the zip codes. So how do we make sure that those folks that are feeling that there's no hope, that they don't have anything else to do, is this is what they have to do because they don't have opportunity, or they feel they don't have to, how do we get that word out? Because it's not going to be up to me. It's actually going to be up to you all to figure that out and embrace those folks to say, come with us.
So everybody at this table understands, and certainly COVID underscored that, we have a shared fate in the city. The success of our organizations is tied to the success of New Orleans and vice versa. So that, we have to be absolutely focused on how what we do, in a sense, speaks to all of New Orleans. And I can speak from my own situation. We at Tulane have been very much concerned about how we, in a sense, our success is the success of New Orleans. We launched Louisiana Promise, which is literally, in a sense, no loan, free education at Tulane University for students parents making under $100,000. That's for people in New Orleans. We have pipeline programs with the high schools, both in terms of education and assisting them literally going forward. But the final piece of this is truly, people have thought of Tulane as this uptown school. We are moving to really create a downtown campus, 25 buildings, a rich infrastructure that will really benefit through the Innovation District all of New Orleans in terms of construction jobs, businesses, and jobs across the city. And clearly, we focus on the success of New Orleans and how important it is to our success. One last piece of this goes to the question of the secret sauce of New Orleans. 40% of our graduates over the last 3 years have stayed in New Orleans. That's an incredible statistic, which is to show they want to be part of this community, they want to contribute to it. The question is, will there be the jobs? Will there be the opportunities here? And that's what we all have to be thinking about.
The average job household, what they're bringing in, compared to other municipalities that we can call progressive, how do we improve that? Because that's somewhere between, I was looking at the James Gill article where he was, in my opinion, this is my opinion only, disparaging the citizens that came back after 17 years and trying to put together their homes out of New Orleans East, which is an area of bricks and mortar. And whether we like or don't like the area, it was interesting to me that he would disparage them and just say the only good thing about it was the refuge outside of the wildlife. And I'm saying to myself, man, you just opened yourself up for a can of whoop, you know what? So I'm thinking to myself, how do we get folks on task to say, it might not be the best area, but I might be part of the problem by saying it on a national level. Because whether I look at it or not, those digital platforms, I can read that in Canada, Afghanistan, or wherever, and it can be international. So how do we get everybody to understand, this is our city, this is what we got right now, so let's improve on it instead of trying to take it down.
Well, which is why the reason that we made a conscious decision with Resilience Force to build our the first training facility there. I mean, we're in New Orleans is going to be our first facility. The second one will be in Miami, and the third will be in Sonoma County, California, right? But we made a conscious effort into saying that we want to build in New Orleans East because we want to train those folks in New Orleans East. And some of these kids, I mean, like the truth of the matter is, if I like the fortified roofing, we're starting off at $17.50 an hour, but over a 2-year span, you can earn $35. If you're making $35 an hour, you don't have time to do crime. You're working your 12 hours, you're going home, and you're going to sleep and getting prepared for the next day. So I think that it's opportunities. We need to make certain that we're providing opportunities for our young people to do well and to succeed, not to just make it, but to thrive in our community.
And I want to commend LCMC and the New Orleans East Hospital for providing world-class health care to New Orleans East, and the state of Louisiana for supporting that and making sure it happened. I think that is a component and a down payment on a commitment to a part of the community that hasn't always received what it needs. But I'll also say we can all focus and do better when it comes to regional transit and making sure that there's connectivity from every neighborhood in the community to every other neighborhood in the community, because if we truly want to become the kind of place that we say we want to be, then people being able to connect to those opportunities has to be real. I'm happy to see the work RTA is doing. I think they have more work to do. And the community supporting those efforts, recognizing that not everyone's getting in a car to go where they need to go, and addressing that concern is a critical component to building the future city of New Orleans that we all want it to be.
So more than likely, I can go around the table and ask about 500 other questions. I think we're 499 in already, but I think that we are coming to our time to say thank you all for coming. And I want to give each one of you a time to go around the table with the last words on what your organization means to the economy of New Orleans. What can we expect? And hopefully we can all get together and say, here's what I improved on, and these are the things that I'd like to see everybody else, and bring some other folks to the table too. I'll start with you.
Sure. I think what's so great about this conversation is you're hearing how we're all working together. For us, we have 9 facilities or 9 hospitals in the greater New Orleans area and on the North Shore. We're partnered with LSU.
Can you name those hospitals for me?
I can. If you have the time, I will.
I'd love to hear what hospitals you might be talking about. He's already told me one time. I just want to hear it.
So we're excited about our partnership with Tulane and what that means for the community, hiring new physicians and faculty, getting them to move into New Orleans, building research, putting together our nonprofit missions and reinvesting in the community, building workforce, attracting conferences or folks coming to our conference center in New Orleans and celebrating the city. What you're hearing here is we're all working together, and that's the how. That's how we're going to continue to move New Orleans forward, and we're excited to be part of it.
Very good.
If you want to know the names of the hospitals, I'm happy
to. Thank you. President of the World Champions, the Tulane
Cotton Bowl
Greenway
champions, right? Cotton Bowl champions.
Yes, sir.
With the biggest comeback in any bowl in history.
Was that 45, 46, 45,
46, 45.
40, I'm sorry.
Get it right, Rod.
May I say, reverse that.
Look, I think you can say of us and everyone at this table, again, a shared fate with this city. We recognize it. We recognize our obligation to, in a sense, this city and the success of the city. And you can see it at Tulane. We were the largest private employer. We see that in employment and bringing employment to the breadth of New Orleans. bringing, in a sense, the impact of our research and education to all of New Orleans, and keeping our graduates in this city to really help, in a sense, propel it forward. It's an exciting time. One quick note, I had somebody visit me recently from out of New Orleans who hadn't been here for a while, and they said, wow, those are their terms. It's this secret sauce, and it's this innovation, creativity, warmth. That is you don't find that anywhere else, and that is something, if we market it and in a sense bottle it, is critical to our future.
Secret sauce, you still got that culinary
Yeah.
thing going on.
Well, I would just say this is that, thanks to the Biden administration, there's tons of money that's coming down to Louisiana. And the Inflation Reduction Act is going to provide for workforce development. I mean, we know that there are jobs that we need to begin to start. What Katrina taught us, that we weren't prepared for the jobs for rebuild. Now we have to begin to start preparing ourselves for the jobs of the future, which is going to be the jobs in clean energy. So what I would say is that we're going to continue to begin to start building out our workforce development center in order so that we can meet the need and the demand, not only for New Orleans and Louisiana, but for our region. I think that is going to be important, that we have enough skilled workers trained and ready to begin to start to work on these jobs sooner rather than later.
Very, very good. Ms. Deanna?
We have about 208,000 customers in New Orleans proper, in Orleans, and we have a couple thousand employees. So I'm going to give you all some number. A couple thousand employees, not as big as the university, but 2,000 employees that are in New Orleans because they either work for Entergy New Orleans or Entergy Corporate. We love the city. We love being here. We want to be in New Orleans. And I look forward to inviting other Fortune 500 companies to come and settle and enjoy everything that the city has to offer.
That is important, very, very much important. And final word with you, Walt Leger III.
Thank you. This has been great. I'm inspired by this group of people, but it all starts with the people of the city of New Orleans. And so we are focused on every day trying to do what we can to make this the greatest place for people to live and work. We know that if we do that, then it will be an incredible place for people to visit. What we want to do is we want to welcome in those corporate interests that want to have their meetings and conferences and events here, want to welcome these physicians and these academic institutions who want to study the greatest new technology and share the greatest new information here in our city, because it's an honor for them to do it here. But to do that, we have to put our best foot forward every day. And that means we've got to focus on cleanliness and on public safety and all the things that make it the kind of community we want it to be for ourselves, because that way we can all benefit from those visitors who come in and create additional opportunities for our people, whether it's employment or whether it's an opportunity to be a part of a business that's going to grow and create wealth for the people that live here. And so all of us together can get there, and we're also just excited to be a part of it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been fun.
Yeah.
Informative as well for our audience, and I thank you all for your time. I know that there's a whole bunch going on in D.C. right now, and you could be doing about 500 other things, but I appreciate each one of you for coming out and having this conversation, not only with the folks that are going to be here in our reception, but of course with the folks that are listening back home, and then next time we'll do it at home. How about that?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gerard.
Thanks so much.
It's been great.
Thank you,
WBO.
WBA,
It's
for
been fun.
having us
WBA,
too.
yes,
WBA, thank you all for the partnership with WBOK. How long were we?
About 40, something like that.
That's why I was looking. I was looking for somebody to give me a count because I thought it was like 30. I thought we were supposed to be like 30
Yeah,
minutes.
it was. I mean, to be frank, we started late too, so
Yeah.
it was.
It's okay. It was good.